Ready? Yeah. I'm gonna call the dogs just to start it off.
Come on, let it hit, man. Let it hit.
Then we can lead right into you. We'll
Go ahead and do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, happy Friday. Listen, we got a little bit of burnt orange back here in this house right now. Burnt orange have experience calling the dogs. So I think we might need to show our Texas friends what this is all about. So, what's that coming down the track?
What's that coming down the track?
It's a mean machine in red and black.
It's a mean machine in red and black.
Ain't nothing finer in the land.
Ain't nothing finer in the land
than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.
than a drunk, obnoxious Georgia fan.
Go dog, go dog, go dog, go dog, go dog. Sing 'em. All right. Let's go.
Sanford Stadium looms in the distance like its college football cathedral counterparts. It's more than just steel and concrete. It has a heartbeat. It has its memories that breathe. It's the battle hymn of the Bulldog Nation. It's out here in the field. It's the sound of two simple words. And in the squared circle for a heavyweight title fight, a classic city collision between college football stalwarts, the Longhorns and their Lone-Heart swagger, the Dogs and the boy mean machine in red and black, a blue blood brawl between the hedges. Saturday night in the classic city, silver britches and burnt orange. This is why we show up early, why we yell till our voices crack, why college football isn't just a game, it's our game. Dogs, horns, tradition and ambition colliding under a November sky. This weekend is college football at its finest, and this is the Preferred Walk-On Show live from Preacher Conference in Athens, Georgia. Welcome, everybody.
All right.
I am joined today. I'm Seth Saunders. I'm joined today by two of my favorite guys. We got somebody here with over 2 decades of coaching experience, putting on a weekly masterclass in film study and film breakdown. The coach, Chris Hayes. Welcome, Coach. Woo! And then we got my man here, the engine behind Speakeasy Sports and Dawg Social Club, the mayor of Dawg Nation, John Smith. Boys, glad to be here with you.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here today.
How we feeling?
Feeling great. Feeling great. How we feeling, Athens? I want to hear you now. I want to hear you now. I got to be a coach here for this right here. I want to make sure that everybody out there hears what's going on. The burn off needs to know that the dogs are in the house. All right. So when we start talking some ball, we're going to definitely have you here for this time, and definitely welcome you in here with us. We appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Well, boys, we're going to start off tonight. We have a very special guest this evening. We have somebody who has ties to the Dogs that go generations deep. And for over 3 decades, he has been the voice of Sanford Stadium, a damn good dog if there ever was one. Please welcome Mr. Brooke Whitmire. Oh, man. Well, Brooke, it's good to have you here tonight, brother.
Thank you.
Why don't you start? I think everybody here would be interested to know. This is not just a casual connection or a work connection being the voice here. You have connections to this school and this program, and especially the football program, that go back generations. So why don't you tell the folks about your family's connection to the Dogs?
Thank you, Seth. Thank you for having me. And like a lot of guys and gals, I grew up a dog from the very beginning. My dad, Dan Whitmire, went to school here in the late 40s, graduated in 1950. Did not get married until he was 37, and I point that out because for a number of years after college, his professional life was in the insurance business. So back when the rules were different, he recruited for Georgia football, traveling with the team, and that was kind of a job without being a job. So fast forward, he did that for several decades until the rules changed. And growing up in that household, all I ever knew was coming to Athens on Saturdays and watching Dad recruit and getting to do a lot of cool things and meeting a lot of cool people along the way. Some old timers that were very, very special dogs. So yeah, it runs deep. It goes back probably. I've got some sideline passes of his that go back over 70 years. So it's deep.
Given the history and given what you know is your deep affinity for this program, what does it mean to you to get to sit in your coach every Saturday and narrate everybody's experience between the hedges?
So it is an honor, and that sounds cliche, but it is an absolute privilege because for me, and I was telling somebody this the other day, for me, of course it's fun, it's great, it's especially fun. We're in the golden era of Georgia football. That's right. We absolutely are. That's right. But I've never forgotten that feeling of walking in that stadium as an 8-year-old kid, and then an 18-year-old kid, and then a student and everything else. It's just a special, special thing, and I don't take it for granted. And it's an honor I'm putting some kind of voice to the special experience that symbiotically 100,000 of us share.
Yeah, I've told you this before. I've always thought that it was akin going to a Saturday football game in the South, just like you're going to church. And so Pastor Whitmire is the one leading us through the service every Saturday. So we certainly appreciate that. Well, look, let's talk about this year's Dogs team, which has been a fun bunch. I think it's been bad for everybody's their heart and their cardiovascular system, the cardiac dogs as they are. But as Kirby has said, they're hard to kill. And so what have your viewpoints been on this ball team, watching them up close and personal?
Honestly, Seth, and I know a lot of dogs would echo this. I love this team. I love it. And I love the spirit of it. I love the togetherness. I love the unselfishness. And it's something that's obvious. And you can see this. And I even had the chance to see it a little bit back in the summer when you're around some of these guys. It's just what they have something. Call it the it factor, call it the X factor, whatever. And they are hard to kill. Yeah. And it is a heart attacks aplenty for sure. And I don't say that lightly. But this is a bunch, man, that I feel like they're playing their best football at the best time. I think we're peaking at the right time. And I think that it's embodied. You can pick any of those guys, Gunner, Stockton. I mean, the character of that guy, Lawson, Lucky. I mean, you just look at any of these guys, the way they carry themselves, the way they care about each other, the way they love each other. And, man, they give it up for the red and black. And you can't ask for anything more. And they got a hell of a coach, too, I might say.
You got that right. Nobody better than Kirby Paul Smart. So
no question.
They're certainly lucky to have him. All right, one last question, and I'll let you go. I know you have a lot to do to get prepared for a big night tomorrow night, but what are you looking for from the Dogs tomorrow night, and how do you think that will go between the hedges?
First and foremost, I'm looking for the best atmosphere we've ever had between the hedges, and we don't. The Dog fans can't take for granted. We got a top 10 matchup, nationally televised, at night between the hedges, and we've gotten used to that.
Yep.
That's kind of normal, which is really amazing. But it needs to be the best it's ever been. We've got to set the tone. We've got to get at least a field goal to 7 points out of a home field advantage. And then the Dogs have just got to hunker down and do it. I'm fascinated by one thing, Seth, and I hate to even bring it up. The turnover margin is interesting to me. Yeah. I'm sure you guys will get into this. But if I understand correctly, Texas is +8. We're -2. Anybody knows any game, I don't care if it's high school, college, pro, whatever, you got to block, you got to tackle, you can't turn it over, you got to be sound in the kicking game, all of those things. And I'm really curious to see who wins that turnover battle tomorrow.
Well, you speak about the Dogs home field advantage and Dogs fans getting ginned up. Nobody better to do that than you, and we will all be counting down for you to walk the Dogs in on a outstanding Saturday night in Athens. So, brother, it's always fantastic to see you, and go Dogs.
Thank you, sir. Go Dogs, Seth. Appreciate it, brother. Chris. John.
Well, Brooke, thank you so much. What a treat to have you and get to talk to you about that. Boys, I don't know about y'all, but I'm about as fired up as I can be to be here with y'all and to get ready for this weekend. Let's just start, man. How are y'all feeling? How do you think things are going to sit tomorrow evening? What are you both looking at? What's the top of the chart for you as it pertains to this big Dogs Horns matchup?
The opportunity this week has been great to watch a lot of film and be able to see, as we close out on SEC play, to be able to watch a lot of quality football and to be able to see how we've grown over the time being. Texas coming in has found some relevance here lately, trying to get themselves back into the top 10 with wins over the Mississippi State and Vandy. But when you look at it from the standpoint from the UGA side of things, we're beginning to come together very well. The chemistry is beginning to show. I feel like we are really identifying what Coach Smart wants as a program, what Gunnar Stockton has brought into the program as well, and what we're seeing now is a team beginning to mold around that personality, and that's something good to see. And you like to see that growth happening right now. You like to see that happening at this time of the year, especially when we had a lot of cogs in that mechanism that wasn't turning very well to start with. We're beginning to see it grow together, and that's something special to see right now.
John, Dogs are coming off a big win in Starkville last week and played probably their most complete game of the season. Does that buoy you and make you feel good as things are going to kick off tomorrow night?
Yeah, I mean, this Georgia team has too much talent to not put it all together at some point, and we saw that in Starkville, and I think for me, one of the things that I think fans underestimate about Georgia right now is, yes, they have a lot of talented players, but they're playing a lot of guys who haven't played a lot of football, right? Including their quarterback. Yeah, including their quarterback, who just made his 10th. And so, doing an interview where he said, hey, it used to be that the first year guys were just trying to survive. Second year guys were trying to figure out who they are. Third and fourth year guys were the guys you depended on. He said, now I'm trying to speed up that process because I have to depend on second year guys. And so what you're seeing, what you saw at the beginning of this year was that you saw Kirby Smart having to depend on a lot of second-year guys. And when you look at, the snaps, especially, I was looking at safety the other day, right? And it's like, you got guys who've been here, they're in their third year at Georgia. They played a total of 30 snaps before this season, and now they play, almost 300. And so when that happens, it takes a little bit. But it made me feel real good in Starkville. And shout out, to Starkville, because, gosh, those annoying cowbells, the worst sound I've ever heard in my entire life, the ringing of a cowbell. They brought it. They tried. But shout out to, Georgia as well for putting that game together.
And the clang got considerably quieter as that game progressed. Coach, I'm interested in getting your perspective on this. Obviously, quarterbacks get a lot of the attention, and they certainly will tomorrow night. Arch Manning is looking as though he's coming into his own after a rough start. Has had two really good games the past two times out. Gunnar Stockton continues to progress. It seems this team really falls behind him and likes to play for him. Tell us what you've seen from both of them and the ways that they can help impact both of their teams in a positive way tomorrow night.
Well, you start with Arch Manning on his side, and I know that he didn't come out with all the preseason hype that happened, and he's having to try to meet those expectations, and honestly, nobody wants those expectations put on them. And he's really struggled through those processes. And talking about someone else is having to deal with a lot of growing pains, the pedigree, the name, everything that come behind, viewers leaving and him taking the program over. And he's really struggled through that process. But with two great games, looking at over 700 yards total completion yardage. I see that he has some confidence built, but when you look at the whole team perspective, it's just like we're talking about with the offensive line, with the things that Georgia is progressing with right now and seeing better things, that cohesiveness that we want to see. I don't know if Texas is necessarily still finding that identity they want to find, but I do know that Arch is improving his game. And that's good to see for Texas Longhorn fans as they come into Athens this Saturday between the hedges.
John, when you think about what Gunnar how he has progressed, he gets his first playing time, extended playing time in the SEC title game in the second half last year, leads Georgia to an SEC title against this Texas team. He's come back this year, and man, every week it seems there were doubters and he would quiet them. There were doubters and he would quiet them. And boy, he has really, really come into his own and is rounding into form in a way where he's able to make every throw on the field, and he's able to do some things with his legs. What kind of weapon is he, and how dynamic can he be given this Texas defense problems?
Well, Gunnar Stockton, so people underestimated Gunnar Stockton because he sat behind Carson Beck and Stetson Bennett, for the last 3 years. Gunnar Stockton is second in Georgia history for total yards. He's first, I believe, still in Georgia history for total touchdowns by QB. That includes passing and running. This is a guy who, and on that list, by the way, are guys like Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, some pretty good quarterbacks. And so I think Gunnar Stockton, I think, people knocked him because he played at a small school. People knocked him because he's behind you. People knock him because of the way he does interviews. People knock him because of his hairline. Like, people knock him because he looks like a 40-year-old used car salesman. Like, people just knock this kid to knock him. Yeah. But what I think and what Gunnar Stockton's teammates have continually said about him is that when he steps on the field, he becomes a different person. That he literally, there's literally a shift. And I think his competitive, to borrow a Kirby Smart phrase, his competitive fire, passion, and energy has been on display. And I think he's another guy, highly recruited kid. I mean, I don't know why people think, for whatever reason, that Georgia and Kirby Smart and Mike Bobo, they're just poor little old Georgia. They got to start Gunnar Stockton. No, they don't got to start Gunnar Stockton. I mean, Georgia could have gone and got a quarterback if they thought they needed a quarterback. They could have started Ryan Puglisi if they thought Ryan Puglisi was better than Gunnar Stockton. So I think what encourages me about the kid is that all of his history, all of his, the way that he's played the game his entire life, what you see when he was in high school, all of that is coming to fruition. And you're at a place where it's like, yeah, I mean, it all makes sense if you actually read the tea leaves and you actually follow the history of the kid.
I want to talk about opposing styles as it pertains to these two schools. And as much as we try to talk about X, Y, and Z and make things more intricate than they need to be, football is a pretty simple game at the end of the day. And that's if you can run the football and you can stop the run, you're going to be successful. Coach, what I've been interested in with both of these teams is Georgia has run the football very well, and they have defended the rush very, very well. Whereas on the Texas side of the ledger, they have had a very difficult time running the football. They have not had a 100-yard rusher on the season. There have been multiple games where Arch Manning was the leading rusher for them. What do you see as these two units match up and how one can establish and control the line of scrimmage and dictate this ball game?
Well, Coach Smart has said preseason to me in the SEC, the team that rushes the football better is going to have more success. And that's something that we've hung our hat on the entire year. And it's becoming to come to fruition with what they've got. They've got over 1,300 yards between Nate Frazier, Chauncey Bowens, and, of course, Gunnar Stockton's legs. I know Texas would also want to establish that. Sarkisian's not dumb. He understands the fact that he wants to have his guys that are back there. Wisner and Baxter both want to be a part of that. And, of course, as well, Arch Manning wants to be able to be a contributor in the run game, but he can't be the primary contributor to it. And so with that being said, it comes down to the fact I look at it from our tight end perspective and what's given us success running the football this year because of the fact that we're running more 12 personnel with Delp Lucky and even now Elias Williams doing that as well to give us a better perspective to run the football. And we establish that. And it's not something we're hoping on. We're doing it. And we're seeing it. Those facts are there every week. And when you have a team that wants to run the football but can in reality do it, then you're beginning to be one-dimensional. And when you're in this league, you can't be one-dimensional because people can pin their ears back and come after you. So, the one thing that I will say this, I think Sarkisian misses Gunnar Helms at tight end. Yeah. Gunnar Helms was a great tight end for them. He did a great job for them. He's now in the NFL, obviously. I don't really know if they have a true tight end role because I've watched enough film. I know they've got the guys on the outside, 3 to 4 primary receivers they're throwing to constantly, but they haven't established an effective running game, and that does come down to having that 11 personnel, 12 personnel tight end game that allows you to be able to get the ball north and south. That sets up everything that you want to do outside that Sark wants to do in his multi-spread offense.
John, I love that Coach brings up the tight ends. You and I have talked about this before, but Todd Hartley continues to exploit his recruiting pipeline with Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. He brings in another one with Elias Williams. I mean, that room is absolutely full of mutants. What have you seen out of that group and kind of how they can change the ball game?
Well, Coach mentioned 12 personnel, but then he mentioned Elias Williams, Lawson Lucky, and Oscar Delp. Coach, what do you call it when there are 3 tight ends on the field?
That is the 13 personnel, my friend.
I run the damn 13 personnel. Todd Hartley, I just don't, it makes a lot of sense if you're a tight end to come play at Georgia when you see Brock Bowers, when you see, even going back, John Fitzpatrick and some of those guys, like you see a Charlie Warner, you see a lot of success tight end with Georgia. But what continually amazes me about Todd Hartley and the tight ends that he brings in is the way that they complement each other, right? Oscar Delp, Elias Williams, and Lawson Lucky are very different.
Yeah.
They have very different skill sets.
Yep.
I mean, and so when he brings in these tight ends, he's not bringing in, he's not bringing in, trying to bring in a bunch of Brock Bowers, right? He's not trying to bring in a bunch of Darnell Washington. He's literally building skill set, size, skill, speed for this offensive scheme. And that's what I love. I love that not only has he had success recruiting, but the way the guys that he's recruited, the way they complement each other. Because when you put Lawson Lucky, even when you put Lawson Lucky and Oscar Delp on the field at the same time, it puts the defense in a different kind of stress. You put Elias Williams on there with Oscar Delp or Lawson Lucky, and it's a whole nother ball game. And so shout out, Todd Hartley. I love the tight ends. Obviously, run the damn 13 personnel is my mantra, because I just think Georgia has so much success when you put those freaks out there and let them do what they do.
Let's talk about a different kind of freak, one who has affected the game offensively seemingly every week. He is a big play threat every time he touches the ball, and that is call him Zachariah Branch. And I just want Coach to talk about what he has added to that offense, the verticality that he brings. And man, if we're talking about transfer ads nationwide, he's got to be in the conversation as one of the better transfer ads across the country.
A lot of people were looking down on the fact of him coming in here from outside in because they thought that he was a bust when he went to USC. But when we got him, I knew that there was something special about him, watching him in the spring game. I got a chance to meet him this summer, call him the Ease. That's his nickname. And just a down-to-earth kid, great character. Just really talked about how blessed he was to be here and be a part of this program. He was really looking forward to what Coach Bobo had for him when they had talked. And, it was really exciting to get to see that, because that was post the spring game before they were really getting started for the fall. So what I like from Zachariah Branch, seeing what they've done with him in the offense, is being able to run him in a lot of motion to start him on the extension of the run game, which is our screen game play. A lot of times you're going to hear that called and just, we talk about, I think, the futility in the screen game at times. I think fans tend to look down on the screen game. But as a previous coach as well, I love the screen game. I love any kind of screens you can run. In fact, I'm going to do it in a way to make it to where I'm putting the ball in the playmaker's hands. I'm getting it out of the quarterback's hand early. And you give a guy who's got wiggle in space and be able to make a play. So you've got to run those plays to set up, because a lot of people don't realize the first completion we had to London Humphreys in the Mississippi State game was based off of a fox, what you call a fox, where you basically are going to take a thief there and you make them think you're going to run the screen, and you get an explosive play off of that. So they don't realize all those screens that are set up. And now what they're doing and what Coach Bobo's doing is he's taking Zachariah, moving him a lot pre-snap, which is all of a sudden making people vacate. I don't know if people realize on the long run that Nate Frazier had for the long explosive and for the touchdown run, Zachariah Branch is on boomerang, what they call orbit boomerang motion. And when he's in that motion, he's making people vacate the box, because their attention is so much on him that it's helping open up the box for the run game. So it's a win-win situation. He's getting the ball in space. I see him more involved in the vertical game now. And then, of course, using him as eye candy before the snap to let other guys have explosives as well.
This Dawg's offense has been firing on all cylinders and look as good as they have looked all year, primed and ready for tomorrow night's matchup. I want to flip over and talk about Georgia on the defensive side of the football. And I want to ask you, John, about C.J. Allen. Butkus Award semifinalist, has been absolutely electric for that Dogs defense. I have said, and hand up, I was wrong about this. Earlier in the year, one of the things I thought plagued them defensively is that they lacked an eraser. So if something went wrong, if somebody missed the gap, whatever it may be, they didn't have anybody that could erase the mistake. And boy, C.J. Allen has been that the last couple of weeks. Just talk about what you've seen from him and what he brings to that Dogs defense.
Yeah, I mean, C.J. Allen, another guy that, again, C.J. Allen has played a lot of snaps. And so he's a little bit different because he is a guy who, has experience, a guy coming back who was on all the preseason watch lists, all those things. But I think what's happening, again, in modern college football is an eraser can be an eraser. But an eraser also has to have people around them to cause at least some kind of stress on the defense. And I think early in the season, I think that I honestly think Georgia, playing a lot of those young guys, playing a lot of experienced guys, did not have players that were in position around C.J. Allen to allow C.J. Allen to erase, right? So you think about like that play. I remember the Orange Bowl versus Michigan when Nakobe Dean ran 30 yards, made a play, tackle for a loss, right? The reason that Nakobe Dean, everybody talks about Nakobe Dean making that play, but that was a defense stringing out that guy. So Nakobe Dean comes because you have corners playing physical and holding up blockers. You have, safeties coming up and forcing that guy, you have guys setting the edge and forcing everything outside. So then you have an eraser that can come do it. I think that's what's happened with CJ Allen is like, you finally have guys that are playing their assignment. You finally have guys that are doing some stuff well, and that allows a guy like CJ Allen to shine because ultimately, and Coach knows this. I mean, I played linebacker in high school back in the day, and we played that slide defense where we like slide. We basically had 4 middle linebackers. Had like 9 people in the box because nobody could throw it in Northwest Georgia in the 90s. But it was always, the intent of the way you play linebacker is like you have guys that occupy guys so you can go make a play. That's what a linebacker does. And I think you finally have guys occupying guys so CJ Allen can go make a play. And I mean, dude, and boy, does he make plays. I mean, friggin' a freak of nature for me watching that guy play linebacker.
Yeah, man, he's been outstanding. And Coach, the unit he's going to have to combat tomorrow is that Texas offense. And you do such an excellent job on your show of breaking down scheme and showing us what they're trying to exploit, what they're trying to do. Tell me a little bit about what Sark is trying to do. I don't know that there's a better schemer, a better play caller in the country than Steve Sarkisian. And just talk to us a little bit about what he's trying to do with motions, pre-snap candy, all those type of things.
Well, what he gives me is what I call the eye sweats, because of all the stuff that he does pre-snap. He's wanting to basically take one guy for 1 second to be out of place, to all of a sudden pay attention at one point in time and get you in a situation where there's a leverage issue, where you've got one guy that's not paying attention. And that's something that's important to me when you watch somebody who knows their role and they have the ability to stay focused, even with all that motion he's going to give you. Because what I think they're going to try to establish on us, because of what they've had success in, especially in the last 2 games, is the screen game. They're going to be throwing a lot of lateral balls out into the flats. And guess who's probably one of the best defensive teams that can handle screens and probably sees it every day and twice on Sunday, it seems, is the Georgia Bulldogs, because we run it so much as well. But you know what you try to do with that? You try to get the ball out of your quarterback's hands quick. That helps Arch Manning get into a rhythm. It helps him, get the ball out to his playmakers, people like Ryan Wingo, people like DeAndre Moore, people like Parker Livingston, those guys that are, helping him out right now, because with all those yards that he has throwing, a lot of them do come from the screen game. Now, I did watch him in pocket when he has a chance to sit there and throw the ball. He can throw a nice layered ball. But their offensive line has really struggled, especially the front triad, both guards and center. And that's something that they're going to have to shore up, because it's really going to be down to the fact of what our defensive line can do against their offensive line. An offensive line for Texas that is struggling, and a defensive line that seems to, create very little havoc. Now, we want to see those one-on-ones to get off, and what we're doing and seeing are things like Zayden Walker coming in and playing more defensive pressure, similar to what Chris Cole did last year. And I'm beginning to see a lot more simulated pressure, where instead of bringing the 4 down linemen, we're bringing P.J. Allen or Raylan Wilson and bailing one of the defensive linemen out, and all of a sudden making a playmaker at the second level come down and start putting pressure. That 4 and 5 man pressure gets home. You're still being able to play things like cover 2, cover 1. You still got guys lined up across the board and still have people in zone with that. But that's going to be the efficiency. We can't start bringing 6. We can't start bringing the house. I think we've got to be effective with 4 and 5 man pressure. And I think that's going to be effective for us on Saturday. And it's going to be up to their offensive line to dictate whether or not they're going to have some type of offensive line, like we talked about earlier, with them running the football, trying to run right at people and seeing what they can do. And we've got to match that physicality on Saturday.
John, Coach brings it up. Texas' O-line has had problems this year. Arch Manning's been sacked 18 times. On the flip side of that, UGA has had a difficult time pressuring the quarterback, although they did have a good game last week against Mississippi State doing that. Is this something where, and especially probably why they're using the quick screen game and those type things, but do you think if Texas tries to get vertical, which they've had a problem doing, do you think Georgia can get there, get home on Arch, make him move his feet, get off schedule?
Yeah, I do. I think if you go back and watch what Florida did versus Texas when they sacked Arch Manning 6 times or something, I mean, just really bullied that Texas offensive line. What Texas has done, and what I think they're going to continue to do, is when they run those screens and things, they tend to condense the offense, right? So they're bringing everybody kind of in to try to create space outside. You're trying to get the defense to move in with you and create space outside. What Georgia did last year versus Texas, when they condensed, when they brought everybody in, that's where you saw corner blitzes. That's where you saw Dalen Evans. You saw, Jalen Walker coming off the edge. You saw a lot of stuff coming off the edge. And so I think Texas has a tough choice, right? So Texas is either going to have to stay wide to a certain extent and try to give March time, or they're going to have to condense and get the ball out really quick. And the problem will always be when you play a Georgia defense of getting the ball out really quick is Georgia's corners are going to be maybe the most physical that a team will play all year. They're going to be the most physical of getting off blocks. They're going to be the most physical of fighting through, fighting over by somebody's face and trying to make a tackle on that screen game.
And something I wanted to add to that, there's nothing wrong with the fact that lost that. Oh, there we go. There's nothing wrong with the fact of leaving your tight end in the 6-man pass pro where you have 3 guys that are going out. For some odd reason, we don't think that's sexy anymore as an offensive play calling. There's nothing wrong with leaving your tight end in to help Arch Manning in the pocket so he does have that 3 to 4 second window to throw because he does have athletes to throw to. And when he does have time, he does throw a good ball. I mean, I watched the Vandy game. I watched him make a layered throw from the left hash to the right field. I saw him throw it in a mailbox where he's got a guy on his heel. He does a really good job. And so you've got to be able to do things that are going to be that's going to help, him being able to stay in the pocket. Because if he's running for his life and he's off his spots, then obviously his accuracy goes down. We've seen that when it happens. But if they're just going to continue to keep 5 men in there to try to block with a running back in as a check down back, that's going to make it a little tougher for him in this process. But there's nothing wrong. We do it all the time. We'll throw out 3 receivers. We'll bring the F back across on a zone play action. We leave the tight end in the game. We got 6 and 7-man play action. And you got 3 guys on the route. There's nothing wrong with that.
Georgia has done a good job this year protecting Gunnar Stockton, and Gunnar Stockton has done a good job getting the ball out, evading pressure, and kept himself off the ground. That's one thing this Texas team does very, very well. 14 different guys on that defense have had sacks this year. You got guys like Anthony Hill Jr., Colin Simmons, who get to the quarterback very efficiently. Coach, you shared something with me earlier that I thought was extremely interesting. If you were game planning Georgia's offense and how to combat a guy like Colin Simmons, what would you do?
Colin Simmons is a freak. I mean, he moves around everywhere. And when I watch him on defense, he basically is like he morphs to whatever you want to do. I see him on the edge sometimes. I see him float out and become basically like a robber where he's watching the quarterback. They did that against Mateer a lot against Oklahoma when I was watching that film. But he is a freak of nature. He's one of the most hybrid defensive ends I've ever seen. And what I would do typically, if you have a guy that's like that, especially with the way that our offensive line is really grown and started to gel, especially what I'm seeing with Green and Gaston and obviously Dontrell Glover and what we've already got from Freeland and Morris on the other side, is I would actually attack Colin Simmons. I would run the ball right at him. And I know a lot of people say, good, let him run right at him. But that to me is where you wear him down over 4 quarters to see what he can do over 4 quarters. Yeah. You start bringing guards on gap scheme and pulling and kicking him out. You start running 2 and 3 guys at him to block at the 12 personnel that I mentioned earlier. You just see what kind of defensive end he is. Now, Anthony Hill Jr. at linebacker, again, another hybrid kid that runs lateral, great twitch. I like the way he fills the box, but also, too, it's one of those things when you get guys in duo and we're climbing to him a lot, that's something that we've had success over the last 2 games that we've played. And I don't want to play the transitive property either. The transitive property to me doesn't matter. The transitive property of what we did last year. But the one thing that I know we did do well is run the football. Trevor Etienne had 2 really good games. In fact, he and Peyton Woodring are the only people that have scored. So, I think that's something that I would do if I was attacking Colin Simmons is run the ball at him, see what we can do in that regard instead of trying to run away from him, see what he's made of.
Let's talk about the head ball coaches leading both of these programs, John. You got 2 guys who are on the text chain together, shooting nuggets back and forth to each other, good buddies from their time. Coach in the past, Steve Sarkisian and Kirby Paul Smart. Where do you think the edge sits in this matchup between 2 an offensive-minded genius and a defensive-minded genius?
I love that Steve Sarkisian said this week that Kirby Smart texted him while Kirby was on the bus driving from Tupelo to the Mississippi State game.
What you doing?
Because, asked him what he was doing on his bye Saturday. I love
watching you, bud.
Yeah, I mean, I think fans, I think fans certainly like we want to create these narratives, and I do think when the competitive issues are flowing, I think they don't like each other, and when you're in between the lines, but these guys are friends, and I think that's always interesting. I will say, it is hard for me in this kind of a game to give an edge to one or the other in terms of like coaching, right? Because at the end of the day, and you know this, Coach Hayes knows this, is that at the end of the day, players have to execute and make plays. I mean, I think Steve Sarkisian, he's had a bye week. I think he's going to have a fantastic game plan. I think on paper, I think he's going to probably know like what Texas needs to do to try to win the game, right? And I think Kirby Smart, one of the best defensive minds in college football history for my money. I think his defensive staff, I think he's going to have a fantastic game plan. I think he knows exactly. I think these guys have been doing this long enough. They know how to beat a team like they're going to go up against offensively or defensively. There's a big difference between I know how to do it and my players can actually go out and do it. And for me, I think in those instances, that's where Kirby Smart has proven himself time and time again. You know, especially in Stanford Stadium, has proven himself time and time again to say, hey, when I put a game plan together and my players are not executing, I have the ability to figure out, A, can I get a player on there that can execute? B, can I make some changes and adjustments to help them, make it a little bit easier for them to execute? And so I think that, for me, gives Kirby Smart the advantage. But it's not, for me, it's not game plan versus game plan, because I think, like, if you got in a room with Steve Sarkisian and he wrote out Kirby's defense and told you how he's going to beat him, I mean, I think we would all be like, yep, you're probably going to beat him.
If I had the dry erase marker last, I would win.
Yeah, exactly, right? It's whoever has the dry erase marker last wins, and when you're doing it on paper. But I just think Kirby Smart has the edge because he's shown time and time again that he can his staff can coach their players to execute when it's winning time, right? I mean, when it's winning time, especially in that stadium over there, when it's winning time, that guy's hard to beat. And I think that's the thing with Kirby, and that's what gives him an edge, I think, over a lot of coaches when you're playing in Athens.
Yeah, I'm interested to get both of your opinions on this. I have thought, watching this team throughout this year, that Kirby really likes this roster. He likes this group of kids, whereas diametrically opposed to last year, where I thought by the end of the year he looked absolutely exhausted. I don't know if it was void of leadership, whatever it may be. I thought a lot of times he was trying to essentially fill that void himself because he had to. I think he knows this year there's a different leadership group, a different core of guys. What have y'all seen as it pertains to kind of how he is with this group? You can just kind of tell he believes in them, believes in what they're capable of, and thinks this is a special group, Coach.
Well, the one thing that you want to see when you start off a season, preseason wise, you learn who your leaders are, because if you're being coach led, you're a good team. But if you're being team led, you're an elite team. And that's what you want to see, is high quality character in these kids. I think they do a phenomenal job. He sees that. You see it in the way he talks about them in pressers weekly. And it's beginning to conform, just like we talk about the Gunnar Stockton mentality. I think a lot of the team really picks up and sort of oozes that personality and what comes out in their play on Saturdays. And I think that's important, because when you have a team that's led that way, they play. And like you said, I think that's the reason why we're beginning to see these third and fourth quarter type cardiac kid concepts they're making them be, because these kids believe. It's almost reminds me, I have to tell. Y'all remember the story Seabiscuit, right? I'm sure. Yeah. And you got War Admiral, remember? Yeah. And Tobey Maguire's character is sitting there talking to his jockey that's going to run Seabiscuit. And he says, let him get up next to you. Let him see him. Let him see him. Let him sniff him. Let him feel him. And let him go. And I remember when he's got it, and it's the whatever it was called, the ride of the event of the century. And he did it. He sat there and let War Admiral catch up with him. They got side by side. He got that little sniff, that little shot, and he looked back and said, see you, Georgie, took off. That's what it kind of reminds me of. It's almost like we enjoy taking the hits, and every hit we take, we get stronger with it. And that, to me, is the mentality of what this program has been built by, what Coach Smart does for his program.
Yeah, I've told you this before, John, but one of the things I've seen as a big dynamic shift with this Georgia program under Kirby Paul Smart is they went from a y'all should have won program to a y'all should have lost program. Meaning there would be games where you get to work on Monday and everybody at the water cooler says, oh, man, y'all should have won that game. Well, that's because you're not doing the things in the margins to get you there. Now you get to the water cooler Monday as a Georgia fan, the guys are going, God, y'all should have lost that ball game. But we didn't. But we did. And so I think that's been the big dynamic shift there. All right, boys. Obviously, monster matchup here in the Classic City tomorrow night. I want to swing around the nation a little bit and talk about some other big games on tap that are going to have some playoff implications. The first of them being Notre Dame heading to Pitt to play the Panthers. Notre Dame is a 12.5-point road favorite. This Pitt team, Pat Narduzzi's crew, has been a totally different bunch since the switch to Mason Heichel. Notre Dame has been outstanding after the first two games. C.J. Carr has been transcendent. How you feel about this, Coach? You think the Irish can pull it off there in the Steel City?
You know, the one thing to me, it's kind of sneaky. Their coach, Coach Ardozzi, I really love that coach. He don't care, and that mentality kind of carries in that sense. I think they're going to cover. I think they stay within that 12.5-point range. I see them probably losing by less than a touchdown, but they're going to cover.
Where you sit on this, John?
Did y'all hear Pat Narduzzi say, I don't care if we lose 103-10 or 110-10 as long as we win the next two? He was talking about the ACC, right? So he's like, hey, if we win the ACC, then, we get in the college football playoff. I don't care. Basically saying I don't care about this Notre Dame game, which I think is it's classic Pat Narduzzi. But also, Notre Dame the last 2 years have beaten Pitt by a combined score of 103-10. So it wasn't. I mean, I think he brought it up because it was like an actual score. But I will say I do think I think Pat Narduzzi, typically when college football coaches, and Pat Narduzzi is a special guy, but he's been doing this long enough that usually when you're saying stuff like that, you know something, right? When you're saying that, a coach that's been doing it as long as Pat Narduzzi is not going to say that and then come out and get beat 55-0. I mean, it's just not. So I do think it covers the 12.5. I think Notre Dame wins the game, but I like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, man. I just something about this Pitt team and this number. I like the Panthers. And again, I think Mason Heichel gives me the ability to stretch the field a little bit, stress that Notre Dame defense, and maybe not as much as Marcel Reed did week 2, but I think it'll be an interesting ball game. So it'll be a fun one to watch. I want to take you to the American Conference, probably one of my favorite races nationwide this year. UCF heading to Annapolis to play the Midshipmen. Georgia tie-in here, boys. The offensive coordinator for the Midshipmen is Drew Cronick, former teammate of the head guy here at Georgia, Kirby Smart. And he is calling a fantastic offense. Blake Horvath seemingly going to play tomorrow. If he doesn't, obviously a big hit for Navy. USF, Byron Brown, Alex Golish has got that team playing really, really well this year. Coach, they are 9.5-point road favorites there. How do you feel on that one?
Well, I want to say that Navy does it. I really think that they're not only going to cover, I think they beat USF. I'm just going to go ahead and call it now. We've had them, that conference with, Memphis last week. Now, USF is up there with Navy coming in. I think they actually not only cover, I think they beat them.
Ooh, I like that. Where are you sitting on that, John? You rolling with the Academy too?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think it's gonna be tough for USF. I would say in this situation, if USF was not ranked, I think this might be a different situation. But I think with the implications, I think with what's at stake in this game, I think USF is going to cover.
Yeah, I'm just a little gun shy with the Midshipmen after their trip to Denton to play North Texas and then Notre Dame last weekend. So I think I'm with you. I think I like the Bulls in this. All right, last one. Let's talk about another big matchup in the conference, SEC showdown between Oklahoma and Alabama. Crimson Tide are a 5.5-point home favorite at Bryant-Denny. Where are we sitting on this, Coach? I know you have some feelings on this Oklahoma offense.
I did. I had a chance this week to be on show with Dave Myrick, an Oklahoma Sooner guy, and I really had to break down a lot of film to try to really get a feel of where they're at right now. The Oklahoma-Texas game was a great game to watch as well because it gave me a chance to see both teams. Prolifically, I think John Mateer is a heck of an athlete, but unfortunately he's in a situation where he just has no run game that's going with what he's doing. I told him that, they got to match Alabama's physicality up front, and I don't know if that's something that they can do. Unfortunately, I just don't see this happening regardless of Sertania, Burke at wide receiver. If they can't establish a good run game and match Alabama's physicality, I don't see how they can be close. I think this is probably going to end up being a couple touchdown game with Alabama in favor of them.
What you thinking on this, John? You think it's gonna be a good day to be wearing the crimson in Tuscaloosa tomorrow afternoon?
Man, Alabama they've lived on the edge, haven't they?
Yeah, they sure have.
I mean, I think I really, 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 really want to believe everything that Coach just said, but I hate Alabama. I freaking hate Alabama, and for that reason alone, I'm going to pick Oklahoma. The completely objective analysis that people come to watch the shows for. The objective analysis, because of my hatred of Alabama, I'm picking Oklahoma to win the football game.
Yeah, I can get on board with that premise. Yeah, you're right, though. They've been razor's edge all year. Even the ball game here, that could have gone the other way, and they've been that way for their entire meat grinder of a schedule. I think I'm going to have to stay with Coach on this. I do not have an affinity for the Crimson Tide either, but, man, I just think this is a Jimmy's and Joe's thing. It's not going to go well for the Sooners tomorrow.
I'll lose my $10 betting on Oklahoma. I ain't worried about it.
I will say this, though. I love Brent Venables as a defensive guy. I love the lock and key that he fits with Alabama. I think it's going to be one of those games we probably are going to be scratching our heads by halftime a little bit, especially Bama fans. But I think it's one of those that goes in the second half.
All right, boys, let's talk about the one we're all here for, okay? Monster matchup between the hedges tomorrow night. The atmosphere will be absolutely electric. The things that Josh Brooks and his staff have done to make that atmosphere one of the best, if not the best in America, is outstanding. Give me this to start, okay? I want to hear your impact players, each of you, for the matchup tomorrow night. Give me a couple for each team.
Well, when you look from the offensive defensive side, I'm assuming. When you look at it from I always want to look at the offensive line first. Believe it or not, the ones that don't get their names in the paper typically is the ones I'm looking at because I fall in love with these guys because they're the ones that get the most hatred, it seems, especially at the beginning of the year. But I'm telling you right now, guys, Ernest Green being back out at right tackle right now is probably one of my most pivotal players that has caused the offensive line cohesiveness that we want to see in our offensive line. It's made Juan Gaston better by being out there by a veteran, being moved back down to a guard. And it's just made the line be so much better, adding depth with Dontrell Glover being able to rotate to either Micah Morris' side or to Juan Gaston's side. So he's my first impact player, whichever running back's hot. And right now, Nate Frazier's hot, but I love the compliment he gets from Chauncey Bowen. So, one of those two have got to step up and do. And I'm going to say this, a lot of people are very high on what Noah Thomas's contributions have been since Colby Young's been out, but I'm going to go away from that. I'm going to give him a little bit of a plug. But what has happened, Coach Bobo has implemented something where we need those 50-50 balls is going to happen, and it's going to be Elias Williams that I want to be able to put in there on that situation.
Yeah, love that.
With that being said, on the defensive side of the ball, I've got to have somebody in the secondary step up. So let's have a KJ Bolden. Let's have a KJ Bolden day, and CJ Allen continues to play complimentary football with Raylan, and let's get this dub.
Coach, you bring up the O-line. I don't want to move off this yet because I think this is important. How pivotal has it been for this Georgia offense where it seemed like every other week you're getting a different offensive line combo, and now that they've gotten healthy and gotten steady, it just seems like they've really turned a corner and turned into a road grader group.
Well, I have to give credit to Stacy Searles, which I know he has taken a lot of heat. Stacy Searles is from the same hometown I'm from. I'm going to give a shout-out to Tryon, Georgia, Northwest Georgia corner.
Stand there.
Stacy's from the same hometown
Also
I'm from.
the Bulldogs.
Yeah, also the Bulldogs. And but I've talked to Stacy many times, and he has a very humble attitude towards it. He wants kids to go out there and grind and get better every day. But for him to make shift and really put this offensive line together the way he has, when I really had sincere worries by week 2 and week 3 because he was trying to put a Band-Aid on a dam to try to keep the water out. And, now we're seeing here in week 9, I think that is the reason why we are seeing the offensive cohesiveness that we have right now because of the offensive line and what Stacy Searles has done to bring that together.
John, who are you looking at? Who do you think is going to turn things tomorrow night?
Guys, you talk about the offensive line. You cannot talk about the offensive line without giving a major shout out to Drew Bobo.
Right.
Drew Bobo is a kid who, if you follow the history of Drew Bobo, right? A lot of Georgia fans had a lot of questions about. You had Cedric Van Pran, coming a couple of years ago. You had
Wilson.
Wilson. Yep. Jared Wilson. Name went blank a little bit. Yeah, Jared Wilson. And then everybody was questioning who's going to play center.
Yeah.
Because I think people genuinely believed that Drew Bobo was not good enough to be the starting center at Georgia.
Yeah.
I think there was this narrative that he's the offensive coordinator's son. That's why and those things do exist, but Drew Bobo has been the glue while all this chaos has been happening around him, has been a guy who not only at the center position do you have to, snap the ball, and all those things, but you have to help call protections. You have to be able to, figure out slides, all the stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think Drew Bobo is going to be a huge impact player tomorrow night. And I think he deserves a lot more credit. We talk about and we should. You should talk about Juan Gasson. You should talk about Monroe Freely. You should talk about these freaks out there. But Drew Bobo, man, shout out Drew Bobo, has been phenomenal.
Playing like somebody that maybe could have Remington mentioned with, I don't know. He's had a good year, man.
Yep.
He's had a good year.
Yep. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go. I think this is a game, cliche, whatever. It's a game that's going to be won in the trenches. I think Kristen Miller has to be. I think he will be an impact player. I think he has to be an impact player. I think Georgia, we're the kind of team that, like the NFL, right? It's the NFL. You have a lot of elite defensive tackles, a lot of elite three techniques, a lot of elite guys making a lot of money that don't light up the stat sheet. And but I think Kristen Miller is going to be that impact player on the defense side of the ball.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I do think, too, the D-line's no different from the O-line, right, Coach, where they don't always get the credit they should. And when they're doing a good job keeping the O-lineman off that second level, it allows a C.J. Allen, a Raylan Wilson to do things, get sideline to sideline. And so, yeah, I think that's a great point. For me, guys, we talked about C.J. Allen earlier, but it's Raylan Wilson, man. I really think he has the ability to change the dynamic for that defense. And when he plays fast, free, and you pair him with CJ, God, man, what a duo. So I'm looking forward to watching him play tomorrow night. I think it's going to be awesome. All right, I'm going to get picks from you, okay? Georgia is a 6.5-point home favorite tomorrow night, boys. Tell me what you're looking for, Coach, and tell me how you think it's going to go.
Well, the typical fan wants to always hear that the Dogs are going to win, and I believe it. I have to watch film and be able to believe it myself because I'm practical about it. So, the 6.5 margin, I do think with the fact of us being able to, when I go back to what I originally said, wanting to run the football versus hoping to run the football. Yeah. Running the football is going to establish the line of scrimmage, which sets up everything that we do, from the RPO game to the play action game to everything that we want to do and include to be successful on Saturday. Because of that, and I think the lack of the run game that Texas brings, when you have the guy trying to get it out on the edges and we're tackling the edges and we end up causing Arch to get off his spots because we're getting pressure with 5 and 6 man pressure that we're bringing, I really do think that allows us to definitely cover the spread. I'm seeing something like 34-21, 34-24, something like that right there.
John, Georgia coming off their best performance of the season last week. How you sitting on this as we head into tomorrow night?
Well, we all know Texas is a new powerhouse in the SEC.
Yep.
Right? He came in the first year, made the SEC championship game. After everybody talked about how tough the SEC was, and here comes Texas waltzing in and and makes the SEC championship game.
Some would say they're back.
Some would say they're back. And of course, like, Texas obviously has the better quarterback. I mean, did y'all see the student section in Georgia? We want Arch, or whatever it was the paint line did when Arch Manning was being recruited. I mean, man, poor little old Georgia's sitting over here. Texas, all this money. Got the Manning quarterback, got Steve Sarkisian, you got everything you could possibly want. And Steve Sarkisian this week decides to complain about the schedule. Steve Sarkisian, after all that, Texas, comes out and says, by the way, last year's thing, I prefer to play my non-conference games early in the season. Comes out now that Texas is fighting for their playoff lives. Now Texas A&M is a top 3 team. It's a little bit different when you're coming in and you get those tough opponents at home and you're waltzing through and all those things. And then now all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, I got to finish the year playing 2 top 10 teams. I don't have an FCS. I mean, and so I think for that reason, I mean, I wish I probably should be like Pat McAfee right now, just take my shirt off, stand up on the table.
Yeah. That's a cosign. I think
no. I think trust me, I love y'all. I can't pay for therapy that you would have to go through if I take my shirt off and get on top of this table. But I will say, I think Georgia, and I believe objectively, I gave the pick for Alabama. Out of my hatred for Alabama. Objectively, I have watched the film. Objectively, I have listened to the press conferences this week. Objectively, I have watched the consistencies and inconsistencies, both sides of the ball for both teams over the course of time. I think Georgia's going to beat the hell out of Texas tomorrow. I think Georgia is going to beat the hell out of Texas. Now, I'm not saying Georgia's going to go out there and it's going to be 41-0, but I think you're going to get to the end of the game, and I think this is going to be, a 34-17 kind of game. You're getting in the game, and you're going to look at the score, and you're going to be like, man, that score feels a lot closer than the game looked.
Drag them out to deep waters.
Because I think you're going to drag them out to deep waters, and I think because the reason I believe that, there are a lot of things that you can get right in a bye week. Defense, a lot of changes you can make. You cannot fix that offensive line for Texas in a bye. And they've had one game where they look like an actual SEC offensive line, and I think Georgia's about to eat tomorrow.
Yeah, man, I think it's going to be a clean sleep, boys, because I just think as much as we try to complicate it, it is a real simple game. It's who can punch somebody in the mouth and continue to do it for 4 quarters. And there's nothing I've seen out of Texas's offensive line that tells me they can do that. I think Georgia's D-line will dominate them. I think, most importantly, Georgia's O-line is going to control the tempo of the game, and we're going to be sitting there in the 3rd and 4th quarter, multiple Kirby death marches going up and down the field. Yeah, man, I think it's Dogs roll all night, man. Big night for the Dogs.
Yes, sir.
Thank y'all for joining us. Had a great time. If you're here live, come see me. We got some drinks on us. Happy to give those out to y'all, and go Dogs.
Go Dogs.